It all began 8 years ago. I found all these Geometry Dash clones on the Google Play Store, and 11-year-old me decided that it would be good content for my 12 subscribers. The video did absurdly well, and I would go on to make a total of 6 parts. And I always found this series cool, because as my channel evolved, so did these videos. The first 3 parts were made in Windows Movie Maker with text edited over. By part 4, I was at 20,000 subscribers and was using a proper video editor. 5 had text-to-speech in that old orange room. And in part 6, when I had 60,000 subscribers, I was using my voice and reacting to the games in real time. And that brings us to today. The last GD Copies video was almost 5 years ago, and I'm now sitting at 500,000 subscribers. It's been a crazy journey, and I really can't thank you all enough for showing interest in the stuff I make. It's gone from Windows Movie Maker to silly icon PNGs to showing my face to whatever I am now. And things are only getting better. Not to mention I even launched a plushie, which as of this video going up is still available for a few days, so go buy it. Seriously though, I can barely even comprehend 100,000 subscribers, so 500k is ridiculous. I wanted to do something special for this milestone, but I also wanted it to fit my current style of talking about absurdly useless things for half an hour. And then I realized, Geometry Dash copies. Surely some interesting ones have popped up in the past 5 years, so why not check back in on them? So without further ado, it's time to step back into the world of Dollar Store Geometry Dash, starting off with... Alright, the first game I want to share is Final Dash 2.2 because in my opinion it's less of a blatant ripoff and more of a passionate fan game. It's made by Boot Dark, who you may know from other GD fan games like Future Dash, which was a very interesting game because it had an adventure mode that lets you freely move in any direction. When RobTop saw this game back in 2018, he said, "I can do that," and proceeded to drop the first ever teaser for 2.2's platformer mode. So it's very possible that the mode was inspired by that fan game, and Boot Dark single-handedly delayed Geometry Dash's next update by like 4 years. Probably not, but it's funny to think about. What sets Final Dash apart is that it's Boot Dark's attempt at making his own original take on Geometry Dash that's free of copyright so he can actually put it in stores and all that stuff. So is it any good? Well, it's... Okay, right off the bat, there's a lot to take in. For example, it says it's Season 3, which presumably means that the game goes through major changes. We've also got this Geometrical Dominator menu theme, which is taken from this Geometry Dash Friday Night Funkin' mod. Heading over to the game's icon kit, there's a lot to see here. What am I looking at here? Yeah, we've got all the forms from Geometry Dash along with Jetpack, Goomba, Illuminati, and Pac-Man. You can also tell that the spider and robot animations were ripped right from real Geometry Dash, which is kinda funny. Also, you can pick any color you want for your icon, but the color picker is an absolute nightmare to use, so good luck. Anyways, after setting up my icon, I decided to try out level 1, which is Pixel World by Coldbreaks. And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. It plays very similarly to Geometry Dash while also having its own unique style and extra spice like camera movement. I'm not sure why the spikes have arrows pointing to them, but I'm so used to all the dumb stuff done in regular GD levels that I don't care that much. What I find the most surprising is that this game totally expects you to have played Geometry Dash before, because level 1 alone throws in orbs, pads, and even speed portals. I was very impressed when I played it, but then I got to the drop. Okay, that is the worst beat drop I've ever seen. I probably shouldn't complain since it's the first level, but at the very least I was hoping for more decorations or effects or something to match the intensity of the music. Anyways, later down we get this Mario part, which is kinda random, but why not? Then the level ends, you see this cool sun hanging out on the end screen, an ad for Walmart pops up, and it immediately asks you to rate the app. So usual mobile game stuff. Level 2 is where things get interesting though, because it turns out that every second level is a platformer. This time you're navigating through a level that's very similar to the first one, but you need to collect 10 coins along the way. And honestly, I didn't really like it that much. The platformer physics were awkward, the music didn't fit the level at all, and the lack of an HP system made messing up really punishing even when there's checkpoints. I'm pretty sure these problems are going to carry over into real Geometry Dash once 2.2 releases, but I wanted to share it anyway since it's my main concern with the mode right now. The platformer level designs in this game are strange, since in a lot of cases you're meant to hold a single direction like a normal level. You also have to divert from the main path to pick up coins, but I find that even weirder since they're mandatory for beating the level. So if you want to make it to the end but miss a coin, you usually have to restart since it's often impossible to backtrack. In fact, in one level I got soft locked entirely. I decided to try some of the other levels in the game, and while it was mostly what I expected, there were quite a few surprises. All of the forms from Geometry Dash are there, but there's also some new ones like Pac-Man. Unfortunately, it's exactly the same as the ship, just with stronger gravity, and the same can be said about the jetpack. There's also a giant portal, which I thought was an interesting addition, and it even has some clever uses in platformer. Level 3 is like Geometry Dash World Length, where it's just a few simple jumps leading into a mostly empty ship part. Level 4 is another collect-a-thon platformer that plays with gravity changes. And level 5, oh my god, it is the biggest nothing sandwich I have ever seen. We start off with a bunch of single spike jumps, then the gravity rotates like in 2.2, and more single spikes. Then there's a long ship part where you literally just stay straight in the center the entire time. Once you reach the drop, there's a short UFO part where you do the same. Then it's a ship for the rest of the level where, you guessed it, all you do is go down the middle. For any aspiring creators out there, this is not gameplay. This is the jumper ship part, but for 30 seconds straight. Another level I want to highlight is level 11, which is supposedly an easy demon. At this point, the block designs aren't even filled in anymore. There's a short Pac-Man section, which again is just floatier ship. Then we get to this back and forth area, which works fine. But after that, the level completely breaks. Oh yeah, and I should probably point out that every time I died in this game, an ad would play, which is really scummy, and part of me wonders if that's why level 1 had arrows pointing to the spikes. But what's arguably worse is that after closing an ad, the game would crash half the time, so dying in this game is very punishing when it's not supposed to be. Overall, Final Dash has a lot of charm, but it's far from perfect. It's trying way too hard to pretend to be its own thing, when in reality it's just recreating everything from Geometry Dash with heavy focus on the 2.2 stuff. The level design is bland, buggy, and inconsistent, and I would have loved to see more interesting things done with it. I watched some of the harder levels on YouTube and they seem a little bit better, but the transitions seem rough and there's a lot of unnecessary effects that are clearly just there to flex. The music sync in this game is also pretty underwhelming, especially in platformer mode, and the art style is interesting, but sometimes it stands out too much and makes it hard to focus on the level. Bootdark clearly put a lot of love and passion into this game, but I feel like he was so focused on going, hey look, I made my own Geometry Dash, that he didn't put enough thought into the more important things like level design, balancing, or playtesting. But I like that I'm actually able to research and talk to this guy, as opposed to those soulless cash grab games with zero credit of any kind. I'm a little harsh, but that's because I see potential in this game. Speaking of the developer, I decided to get in touch and ask him a few questions, and he was very open to it. For one, I wanted to know how the levels were built in the first place, and it turns out he makes them right from the Room Editor in Game Maker, which is the engine he uses. He even shared this video with me, which is what you're looking at. Bootdark also clarified a few other things, like the fact that seasons are updates for the game and number 4 is in the works. Based on his YouTube videos, it's going to be a lot more GD styled. The songs he uses are all copyright free, and he's partnered up with Coldbreaks. Finally, the ads in the game are handled by Google, and he'll look into the crashes and other issues with them. So yeah, that's Final Dash. It's far from a perfect game, but definitely a respectable one. And with that out of the way, let's go play something stupid. Ah yes, Block Dash Jump Geometry. A game so good it doesn't even need a title screen. There's a lot I could say about this one, but I think all you really need is my raw reaction. That's not gonna get annoying. Oh no, they picked the worst coins. That's right, there are coins scattered all across the level that play the most annoying sound when you collect them. And the coins are barely even necessary since they're pretty much impossible to miss. As for the actual gameplay, it's pretty bare bones and has zero sync as you'd probably expect. But you won't even be able to focus on the music because there's also lots of blocks, backgrounds, and other assets stolen from Geometry Dash, but that really shouldn't come as a surprise. One of the levels has an extremely zoomed in screenshot of the background from Press Start, and part of me wants to believe they just grabbed it from a gameplay video. There's not much of a difficulty curve with this game, and some of the levels are pretty funny since there's a lot of gameplay patterns that are very obviously stolen from Geometry Dash. For example, the start of this level is exactly the same as Back on Track, but there's only 2 fake pads instead of 3, so that might be original enough. There's also this level, which is basically Stereo Madness, but they threw in some jump pads for funsies. Despite what the game's store page wants you to think, there's no portals of any kind, so things get stale pretty quickly. The game also lacks any sort of level select, so after beating a level, you're sent right to the next, and it's now the only one you can play. After like 4 or 5 levels, I thought they were starting to repeat since the songs were the same, but it turns out that the levels are different because this one is Back on Track, but now there's 3 jump pads. So I'm sure by now you're dying to know, what do the coins do? Well, each level has a couple of checkpoints in it, and you can pay 100 coins or watch an ad to respawn at one. There's also an icon shop, because it turns out the game does have a menu, and it's got some absolute bangers like a demon, Trusta with the Theory 2 icon, the monster but with bigger fangs, SpongeBob, Amogus, Doraemon for some reason, and a pixelated minion. You can also watch an ad for 200 coins or just pay money. Speaking of ads, as you probably expected, they play every time you die, as well as when you beat a level, regardless of if you click no thanks or not. Finally, I want to talk about this game's greatest feature, hard mode. You know that one map pack where it's just the Rob Top levels but faster? This game's hard mode is basically the same thing. And it is hilariously untested, because a lot of the jumps straight up don't work unless you time them in very specific ways. It is pretty fun once you get the hang of it, but since all the levels feel exactly the same, it'll keep you entertained for like 5 minutes at most. And that right there is the biggest flaw with this game. It's empty and extremely repetitive. If the levels had a bit more personality, I could see myself playing for a little longer, but that's just too much effort for Rainbow Fives. They're too busy all up in the crib with games like Super Mino, Pack Classic, Tomb Color, Among Action, Angry Birds. Actually, I'm starting to think these guys are onto something. You know what, I think I'm gonna pass on this one. Actually, wait, back up. There are some things I need to share. So yeah, this is poorly made Geometry Dash featuring internet sensation Skibidi Toilet and that one song in the background. It's even got the ship game mode complete with gravity changes, so that already puts it ahead of the last game. You move really slowly, and the levels are pretty trash, but there's always room to make your own fun. You guys wanna see a swag route? Oh, let's go, swag route! Also, whenever you die, it farts. That's basically all there is to this game, but there's also an icon kit where you can unlock 3 more characters. And wow, I wonder what they could possibly be! You know what they say, a good character design can be recognized by their silhouette alone. I think you're supposed to unlock these guys by watching an ad, but for some reason the button doesn't work, and it also never clears from the screen. But I was able to just look in the game files, and yeah, sure enough, we've got Roblox Guy, Freddy, and Sus. In total, there's 8 levels which you unlock by beating the one before, or you can just go to the icon screen and back and it'll magically be unlocked. All in all, this game is definitely Skibidi Toilet Geometry Dash. I'm sure someone out there asked for this, and hopefully they're happy now. So I first heard about this game a couple months back, and I knew that I needed to cover it, because it's not just a shameless copy of Geometry Dash, it's a full recreation of the game playable in your web browser. I'm not going to give the link since it probably only exists to mislead people and make money, but it's spreading across sites like wildfire, so you'll probably find it anyways. But yeah, this is Geometry Dash built from the ground up in the Unity game engine, and it's got every level all the way up to electrodynamics, which they even assign the correct difficulty to. And coming soon might also be a level since the info box says so. All the levels are basically one-to-one with the originals, and it actually feels like I'm playing real Geometry Dash aside from some major quirks that we'll get to later. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or terrified at the length people are going to make bootlegs, because truth be told, these silly Geometry Dash knockoffs are starting to die out. Now it's become a race to recreate the game as accurately as possible in order to beat out all the competitors. Right now, the meta for these websites is to steal scratch projects of custom levels, which is a rabbit hole that I've covered in a different video. But when it comes to the official levels with significantly higher demand, this is apparently the next big step. So along with all the levels, this game is trying to recreate everything, from a functional stats list to every tab of the settings menu, which was implemented pretty weirdly. The rate, songs, and help buttons all link you to the game's main website, while the account buttons are all there but do nothing. How to play is exactly what you'd expect, and then there's the options menu with the actual first page of settings from Geometry Dash Lite. And this is where it starts to get really weird, because auto retry and auto checkpoints do work, but they're written with underscores. And the rest of the settings do literally nothing, and they're only there because real Geometry Dash has them. If you have a keen eye, you may have noticed quiche checkpoint mode, and yeah, this game has typos everywhere. Just look at the info boxes on this menu. Improve performance, editor preview, disable Phi game speed. On the pause screen, they also wrote progress bar. And back on the menu, they spelled Newgrounds with a space twice. And the open button does nothing. Finally, the achievements menu is, this. I don't know, the link they went to recreate this menu is almost creepy to an extent, especially since you have all those buttons that don't even do anything. Also, I don't get how they can go this far to remake it, and then not bother to fix any spelling issues. As you probably guessed, the icon kit is a near perfect recreation as well. It's got every icon across every game mode and even uses the 2.2 system for colors. Death effects don't work and your trail will always be fire unless you're in the wave, in which it's rainbow. But what surprises me the most is the spiders and robots. Icons are easy, you just take 3 or 4 layers, color them, and stack them on top of each other. But for robots, you have to do that for each individual leg, then put them in the right position, and then animate it. These are the sprites in the game files, and the rest is up to you, so good luck. Now, I did eventually figure out how to do all this. Spoiler alert, it involves these files. But the fact that this random person figured it out as well, when these game modes aren't even used in any of the levels, I don't even know what to say to that. Mind you, they did mess up the top of this robot and the eye on this one, so maybe the dev did suffer as much as I did. Okay, tangent over, let's dig a little deeper into this game. Like I said before, the levels are pretty much one-to-one, and at first I thought that they actually ported the level data from Geometry Dash, because I've personally done that countless times. But there are enough differences to say otherwise, mainly with the positioning of ground spikes. The later levels also have much more drastic changes, like Clubstep's first coin being altered and electrodynamics having different saws. There's also no invisible blocks, which really makes Clubstep hit different. Funny enough, there's normally a missing spike in base after base, but they filled it in. And then for the one in electrodynamics, they kept it. Physics-wise, the moving and jumping in this game is fine, but that's about it. As soon as orbs get involved, everything falls apart. Not to mention, every form is broken in one way or another. Cube lets you bonk your head on ceilings, but only sometimes. The ship looks ugly and flies way too slowly, or too quickly if you're upside down. The ball gravity is too strong, and the UFO flaps are tiny. As for the other modes, there's no way to tell since you never get a chance to play as them. Practice mode is functional, but it doesn't save your velocity, so respawning midair is kind of broken. Coins are way smaller for some reason, and you don't need to beat the level for them to save. And the weirdest change of all is that touching a portal resets your gravity back to normal, which will be important later. Finally, despite going this far to perfectly recreate Geometry Dash, the music doesn't even sync! Trust me, this gets significantly worse as you go on. So yeah, that's the game. It's a faithful recreation, but it plays terribly. Which sucks, because knowing kids, they're gonna play it anyways and probably even think that this is real Geometry Dash. But yeah, I think I've talked enough about this one. On to the next game. Psych! We're not done yet, because there's also Meltdown. Just like with real GD, everything is exactly the same except for the levels. These ones are just as faithful as before, but now even more corners are cut since 2.0 features are significantly harder to remake. What I found the most interesting with this one is the coins, because unlike the first game, any coins you find are permanently collected and no longer show up in future runs. And along with that, there are some pretty interesting changes to them. In Viking Arena, the key reveals itself even if you miss it, but it doesn't matter because the coin will appear regardless of if you got it. For the second coin, normally you have to go through a fake wall, but in this version it's just the only way to go. Finally, in Airborne Robots, you're forced to take the first coin route. Okay, now I've covered everything. Except not really, because there's one more website. Not World, not Sub-Zero, but Bloodbath. Yes, they compiled an entirely separate game just for this one level, and it's rated Easy Demon. On paper, I can kind of see why they did this, because Bloodbath is one of, if not the most popular demon levels in the game, and it's also the hardest level in Geometry Dash. Or at least it was in 2015. So I play the level, and it is Bloodbath, and it's really accurate too. Or it might be because it's impossible to beat. The physics are an absolute nightmare, and after an hour of inching through this level in practice mode, I found that the transition into Vermilion's part at 10% is impossible. Why's that? Well, like I said before, when you touch a portal, it resets your gravity back to normal, but in the real level, you need to stay upside down. Either way, I edited together a segmented run of the first 10%, but I also want to issue a flash warning since the ball part was brutal and I died a lot. At this point, I was dying to know who was behind the existence of this game, and with the help of a friend, I actually ended up finding them. Hi, are you the one that made the Unity remake of Geometry Dash? That's right. Why do you know this information? Obviously, I'm keeping this guy anonymous to avoid any issues, but we talked a little bit, and here's the main details I picked up. I asked if he plays Geometry Dash, and he said every day. For spiders and robots, he figured out how to construct them by himself. The levels were obviously built by hand. He made Bloodbath because it was the only level he had the budget for, whatever that means, and he claims that he got 57% and maybe he was just lucky to pass that transition. Or maybe he was talking about real Bloodbath, in which, go him. Anyways, that, my friends, was the weird online Geometry Dash recreation. Final thoughts? It sucks, don't play it. Ugh, thank God, we're back to the dumb ones. See, this is the kind of stuff I signed up for. We've got this goofy title screen with crewmates running by, and some extremely funky music, which I would later learn is Carnival by DJVI. The actual gameplay is certainly Among Us Geometry Dash. You play as Mr. Red Sauce, who starts on attempt 0 and tries to avoid all the space-themed obstacles. For some reason, you also leave a trail of Geometry Dash icons, and every time you click, you hear one of 5 random grunting sounds. You may have also noticed that there's random dead crewmates scattered around the level as decoration, and when you die, well... What I find most interesting about this game is that every time you die, your attempt count goes up, but the level completely changes. I thought the layout was randomly generated at first, but it turns out that there's 3 different levels you can get, and their music and decorations are shuffled every time. The easiest way to see what level you're on is by pausing and checking your best percentage, or sorry, your all-time high record. The levels themselves are pretty bare bones, and there's no mechanics other than spikes or other hazards. No orbs, no game modes, really all you do is just jump. But it's worth it, because when you reach the end, you get to see the greatest end screen known to man. Starting to think this game doesn't end. Oh, it does. Oh my God, that was worth it for that screen. And then it just starts a new attempt. That's about all there is to this game, but I did decide to take a peek into the game files, and there's some pretty funny stuff there. For one, the game stores and preloads every sound effect from Among Us, including a 6-minute menu loop, and of course... There's also a few unused Geometry Dash sounds, and my favorite is the death sound because they decided to modify it a little bit. And by that I mean it sounds like this. As for unused images, we've got various Geometry Dash textures, some speed selection buttons, a whole bunch of icons, a version where they all have headphones, and even a whole shopkeeper boss sprite sheet. Gee, it's almost like these are for a whole other game. Yeah, you already know where this is going. Let's just play it. They used the death sound, let's go! Okay, to their credit, this is a sort of different game. The levels are exactly the same, but there's new features like selecting your speed. We've got this evil shopkeeper that chases you, and most importantly, there's a proper level select. But what's funny is that the game saves your progress in the same place as Among Dash, so if you get a certain percentage in one game, it will also carry over to the other. Also, I was a little disappointed to find out that the shopkeeper only shows up in level 1. I'm not sure what the decision behind that was, but this is Geometry Dash Blackboard, I'm not expecting good lore. The icon kit has these cool doodle versions of all the icons, and even though the preview at the top says otherwise, you do get to use them in-game. I could go through all the icons, but I'd rather let the game description speak for itself. Guys, you are about to have a fantastic adventure with the famous characters of Geometry Dash. Are you ready to plunge into a crazy world where danger and fun go hand in hand? Welcome to the Geometry Dash Blackboard game. In the list of skins, you will find the most popular cartoon and movie characters such as Pikachu, Deadpool, Batman, Meat Guy, Iron Man, Cyclops, Creeper, Minion, Ninja Turtle, Mushroom from the Super Mario universe, and many other heroes. Final verdict? Well, it's got Mushroom from the Super Mario universe, so that's a 10 if I've ever seen one. Out of 1,000. Get it? It's the same game. The gimmick this time is, they bit crushed the entire screen and added radio blur. Also, the shopkeepers are on all the levels now, but they don't chase you anymore. And the icon kit is way more boring now. Okay, I can get behind this one. We've got pencils now. The shopkeepers are gone, but at least the screen feels a lot more clean now. Okay, now they're just getting lazy. All the fun stuff is gone, and they even got rid of the funny death sound. This is also the point that I realized that level 3 starts exactly the same as Dryout. It's only the beginning part, but still silly nonetheless. There are probably way more of these games, but I think you get the point by now, so let's move on to something that's not this. Yep, they really called this game Go Up Dash, or Gulp Dash depending on how you look at it. I was a little nervous going into this one since a lot of the icons are identical to the last game, or games that I showed. But thankfully, this is a different game, and we've got some fire icons like Tiny Face and this guy who looks oddly familiar. As the name implies, in this game, you go up. And that's probably because it's a vertical game, so you can put it in your TikToks or whatever. But I don't want to waste all this extra screen space, so I'm going to do you guys a solid and... Now you probably noticed this already, but the movement in this game works like the ball, where you leap back and forth between 2 walls. And for some reason, this kind of rang a bell. Well, turns out this is the sequel to a game I played all the way back in GD Copies 1, 8 years ago. I only showed the game for about 20 seconds, but you could tell that it was different from the version I was playing, mainly because there were no spikes. Speaking of spikes, you may have already noticed some weird behavior with them. More specifically, these Undyne-styled spikes that flip over to the other side. Honestly, I found this kind of cool. It's very sight readable and adds a ton of spice to the game. As far as music sync goes, the version I was playing on didn't even have music, but it turns out that I wasn't missing out on much since it's just random NCS songs that don't sync at all. After beating level 1, it already felt like I'd seen everything this game had to offer. There's no orbs, pads, or portals, and you never even touch any surfaces other than the 2 main ones. But just to be safe, I decided to take a look at level 2. And this is what I was greeted to. Yep, now we've got these wavy circle things. They're pretty easy to avoid, but later down they start coming in pairs. And then we get these stretchy spikes, which look easier at first, but can trip you up a lot when mixed with the wavy guys. Either way, the level is still very readable, and the spikes from level 1 don't make a return. Okay, fine, one more level for good measure. The gimmick for level 3 is these weird spikes that fold into squares. Once again, surprisingly sight readable. Later down, there's also unfolding squares that do the opposite. I definitely appreciate the effort this game goes through to try and mess you up, but in reality, I beat all of these in 2 or 3 attempts. There's not a whole lot you can do to make it hard when all you really do is pick which side to be on. And that's Go Up Dash. It's a pretty cool game with some very interesting, albeit trippy gimmicks. I kind of appreciate that it's not trying to copy Geometry Dash outright and is instead doing its own thing, even if it is pretty simple. But the story doesn't end there. You see, I played this game months ago, before I had any plans for this video, and when I came back to it recently, something just felt wrong. The game was exactly the same as it's always been, and I had all the info and gameplay footage that I needed, but I still felt like something was missing. And then it clicked. So far, every level of this game was completely different, from crazy spikes to these wavy things to unfolding boxes. And if I truly wanted to uncover everything this game had to offer, I would have to play and beat every single level. I would have to become the best Go Up Dash player on the planet. So I sat down one night, got comfortable, cranked up the Vocaloid, and dove into level 4. The gimmick for this level was magnets. They pull small blocks towards them and even have north and south labeled for some reason. And if it isn't obvious, you can't touch these blocks. Later down, the magnets start attracting themselves, and eventually you have big blocks that attract the magnets. With that being said, it's still a very easy level, no issues as long as you focus. Level 5 had these hammers tossed at you, followed by a bunch of Captain America looking bouncy balls. Once again, no problems, even when they're used in combination. But then the screen turns red and these hands pop out. And next thing you know, you're thrusted into a boss fight. It's very easy, you just have to look ahead and go where the laser isn't, but like, there is an actual boss fight in this! How did we get to this point? Once you dodge enough lasers, the hands retreat and the level ends. Later down I got curious and decided to look into the game files, and I found that the hands are the only sprite in the game with a proper name assigned to it. And it's Iron Man Hand! And suddenly the entire level made sense. It was Avengers themed. We've got Thor's hammer, Captain America's shield, and finally a boss fight against Iron Man. At this point, there was no turning back. I knew I had to finish this game. Level 6 was the most memory heavy one so far, and that's because it had these saw blades that can slide in any direction. It didn't seem that bad, but then I got to the ones that moved backwards. This level took a lot of trial and error, but eventually I pinpointed the most important strategy for this game. Just go back and forth. Think about it, your moveset in this game is tiny, so there's only a handful of movement patterns to play around with. And what's the most obvious one? Well, up, down, up, down, up, down. Or alternatively, down for a while, then up for a while. This worked in a lot of the previous levels, and sure enough, it was the answer to beating this one as well. Whenever things get confusing, just alternate. Think like a lazy game designer. Anyways, the level also throws swinging saws at you halfway through, but I survived nonetheless. Oh my god, this is the one. Oh my god! I am the master of Go Up Dash! Level 7 centered around these diagonal arrowhead things, followed by easy to dodge ninja stars. Now that I was starting to believe, I realized that the patterns in this level were absurdly obvious, and I beat it pretty quickly. Level 8 was all about guns? Multiple types of guns? Yep, it's the gun level, and little did I know what I was about to go through. The guns shoot diagonally, but they can do it in either direction. And my god, does it get confusing. 10 attempts in, I was already starting to struggle, and then I realized that there are even bigger guns, and they are a major choke point. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this level was hell. I died so many times, but I refused to give up, and 88 attempts later, this happened. 1, 2, 3, stay left. Okay, please. Oh my god! It's over! Level 9 was a nice breath of fresh air. Knives, diagonal knives, curvy toenail knives, and spinny knives. Definitely some tricky parts, but it only took 15 attempts. With the knife level conquered, level 10 brought out the swords. We start out with these huge buster swords, followed by some small stationary ones, and eventually a few swinging axes. I thought this one was pretty cool, and within 2 minutes I was done. Sadly, there was no boss in this one. I was kind of hoping it would be on every multiple of 5, but oh well. Level 11 was the tumbling spike level, followed by tumbling squares and tumbling hexagons, and eventually all of them together. Kind of stupid, and I beat it first try. Level 12 had jellyfish in it. They swim to the other side or apparently find mates. I think this game is trying to tell me something. It's all super easy until the caterpillars come out. Things get a little heated when they're used in combination, but otherwise this one wasn't bad at all. Now, I want you to take a random guess for level 13. We've seen a lot of weird stuff so far, but what could possibly be next? Turns out, it's Angry Birds, and they didn't even try to hide it. The red bird just launches forward. The yellow one, or Chuck, or whatever he's called, goes diagonally. And the blue guy goes forward, but also lays an egg, which I'm pretty sure was the white bird's thing, but oh well. This was the hardest level by a long shot. The patterns are confusing, the slingshots clutter the screen, and those frickin' eggs are evil. The level seemed cute at first, but after that, I hated every moment of it. You cannot break your focus for 1 split second. But somehow, after way too long, I survived it. Easy. Oh my god! It's over. And level 14 didn't unlock. I tried rebeating the previous level, which I somehow did first try, but no luck. At this point, I was in total denial. I tried digging up the game's code, editing my save data, but nothing would work. And so I decided to try the mobile version of the game, thinking that maybe I could hack or edit my save a little more easily. And it turns out that on mobile, all the levels are just already unlocked, including 14! I was super excited, and I had very high expectations for this level. So I finally played it, and it's just a bunch of bouncy shapes! This was one of the easiest levels in the entire game. I beat it first try, and after that, nothing. That was the whole game. I started to think of all the pain and suffering I went through to reach this point, and then I realized I had survived magnets, saws, guns, swords, jellyfish, superheroes, birds, and the final level of the game was geometry. My journey had come full circle. The level wasn't meant to be hard, it represented freedom. After all, it's about the journey, not the destination. This level is just the game coming to a close, and the more I let that sink in, the more I realized I had done it. I was the new master of Go Up Dash. The game may have been absurdly stupid, but damn it, it taught me to never give up. It taught me patience, courage, dedication, determination. And you know what? I think I've become a better human being because of it. Wait, what's this? There's a red level 15 sign in the game files? No, I am so done with this game! It's not even implemented, but I think this game has driven me crazy enough. Were you even listening to what I was saying earlier? Because I wasn't! 7 out of 10 though. I like the jellyfish. And that's gonna be it for today. It's been quite the journey, and I hope you enjoyed sitting through all of it. I want to remind you that a lot of these games are made to trick and manipulate people who aren't familiar with Geometry Dash, so if you want to check any of these games out, I highly recommend being cautious and going in with an ad blocker. Once again, thank you so much for 500,000 subscribers and for supporting this series for 8 years now. I still find that incredible, and I love that I can talk for this long about the stupidest things and people will actually listen. I really do appreciate each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for watching, and see you in a decade for part 8 where I play the best game, Minecraft Jumper. It's very original, trust me.